right, guys, welcome in. I am joined by someone that, if you've been around the NHL community for a very long time, you definitely know. But I brought him on because he is insanely smart, probably one of the best when it comes to the market and getting you coins, or getting himself coins, in NHL. My man, FlashDavin. My dude, how's it going?
Going good, dude. What an introduction. I'm a dinosaur of the NHL community.
Dude, for anyone that doesn't know, explain how long you've been around.
Think I've probably been around since NHL 13, made some YouTube videos, the infamous face-off tutorial video.
It probably
Kind of
still
took
works,
off
dude.
took off way back in the day. But yeah, I'm from like the Halo Diego, 2BC, Decasaurus Rex, Lamb Chops, some old names for people who've been around for like 10 plus years, but yeah, no longer in the content creation game, so it feels a bit weird to be on here, to be
Yeah,
honest.
man, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I came around way late after all those guys were pretty much out of the scene. Even 2BC for the most part has been kind of gone since I started. So, sad that I missed that era because I know there's a lot of beauties back then. But the reason I want to have you on is because I have known you pretty much just through Twitter. Basically, you play on Xbox. I main PlayStation, so I've never even played you. You're one of the better players still, even in your older age. All right, as
I'm
you've
all
gotten up
right.
there. But the
Mid
one,
tier, mid tier.
the one thing that has always been amazing is no matter what, you don't spend money on the game, and you have millions of coins every year. So I thought, why not get a market master on the channel and see if he can walk us through some of the more advanced things that you can do in NHL? Because in my opinion, I think it's one of the hardest games to make regular coins in, because there just isn't a lot to do, and the market isn't doesn't fluctuate a ton like it does in other Ultimate Team games. So, all right, let's just dive right into it, man. Walk me through the base level things that you look for. Let's start at the beginning of the year. No money spent. You're not spending any money at the beginning of the year. What's like the first kind of things that you wait for? Do you wait a couple weeks before you really get into it, or are you right after like an EA play and stuff like that?
Yeah, so let me give you a bit more of like a general like step back, like because good point, right? When you start the game, like I think the first thing you need to think about is think about like how long are you first of all even planning to play the game? Because for me, like a big one is, I want to go to GWC so I can get rounded by a random, right? So I want to have the best team for GWC. And then I usually don't play too much after that, right? Like I don't play a whole lot of NHL after that. So I'm optimizing my team for GWC. There's going to be a lot of people listening to this that they maybe play for like a month or two, and some of the stuff I'm talking about is not how I'd recommend they do it, right? Like they might want cards that are just good for a month or two and then they're on to a different game kind of thing. This is more for maybe the hardcore people who really want their best team for GWC, and even some of the people who are watching this in like August, I would consider you pretty hardcore as
Yeah,
well. So
yeah, yeah.
those types of folks, I think this would hopefully be helpful for them. But yeah, I think the first thing you got to do is kind of think like, how long are you going to play the game? Because that's probably the most important question about how you're going to do all this stuff and how you're going to optimize your team. But I guess like the biggest thing that you want to think about is you get paid and make coins simply for just being patient and paying attention to kind of what's going on out there, right? So like the people who are impatient just hop on the market, buy the first card they see, they're going to pay you as the person who's flipping the card a premium, right? So that's one of the things, like right at the start of the game, the way I would kind of approach it is, and this is like a concept, like I'm a chartered investment manager in real life, so I'm kind
Yeah, I
of a
was about
nerd
to
for this
mention that.
stuff.
Yeah, I was about to mention
Yeah,
that. You know,
I'm a
you.
nerd for this stuff. I
Yeah.
find this fun. Most people probably don't, and that's okay. Play the game how you want, but I'm kind of a nerd for building this stuff up and building a good team. But like the concept is build up your bankroll like as quickly as possible, just buying and selling base cards in the first week, right? Like popular base cards like I don't know, like Matthews, McDavid's, whatever you can kind of afford early on. You can use that 59-minute mark just to start to get going. And if people who don't know, go to the 59-minute mark, see new cards that come on. You're going to kind of get used to what they normally sell for. You're going to see ones that come up for a bit cheaper. Try to just flip them, make a few thousand at a time.
I have
You're,
a
you're for,
I have a
you're,
question
yeah,
with
go
you
ahead.
about that. I'm sorry, I have a question about that. So when base cards, like, so let's say the first week of the game comes out, right? Maybe you get a bunch of packs from rivals, or you play squad. Everyone plays squad battles the first week. You play your
Yeah.
squad battles and you get your packs. And would you here's the question. So, like, would you recommend, let's say you get Matthews, base Matthews, and he's easily your best card, right? Like, your base Matthews. Are you selling pretty much everything? Like, what are you keeping on your team? And what, when you pack it, are you immediately selling? And at what point do those base cards kind of lose enough value where you don't want to use them? Or are you just not using base cards and you're just trying to go after, like, event cards, things like that?
Yeah, so good question because there's like a difference between what I'm flipping and what's on my team,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And you'll notice with me, like throughout most of the year, you'll notice that my team will normally be, especially early on, probably be a week or two behind the game cycle for new cards.
Okay.
And the reason why is that I'll use an analogy. Like if you buy a new car in the first year,
Yep.
you lose like half of its value. It's the same with these like high expensive cards, right? It's like the first week or two, they're the best cards in the game, but in a week they're not going to be anymore. We all know how it goes with EA. They drop newer cards all the time, right? So I don't usually buy those new cards because they lose half their value and that's killing you. Like if you buy a card for 500,000 in a week it's worth 250, I mean you just lost 250,000 right there. So
So,
I'm usually buying those cards like a week or two later when they're kind of old news because I'm only focused again, I'm optimizing to get those team of the year cards, the ones that are going to be on your team all year, the best cards in the game.
so okay, so let's yeah, so like that's so when you're with that in mind, then you're just kind of a. I guess this would be my next question. We're gonna go all over the place, but there's a lot. There's gonna be a lot of stuff because I'm excited to talk about this. Okay, let me
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
you this then: if you're staying a week or two behind, are you ever investing in a master item up until Team of the Year, which for anyone that doesn't know would be January 1st now?
Yeah, so never. And so this is another tip
Never.
that I have is that I'm never building untradeable cards. And again, this is where it's really different for the guy who plays for a few months or the guy who plays like once a week. Like go ahead, right? Like go ahead and make your untradeable card. That's fine. Just understand that you're giving up a lot of value and you're not going to have the best team by the end of the year. So I'm never building untradeable cards unless the only exception is like the Evo events, right? Because those are going to be
I
like
want to talk
99
about that
cards.
too. Yeah.
And the exceptions Evo events, Team of the Year events, or if there's some monster card that I know is going to be on my team for the whole year, like I don't know, like a 99 char or something.
Yep.
If there's like a meta card I know is going to be great all year, I'll build it untradeable. But I never build untradeable cards until yeah, like almost GWC time.
So, okay, the Evo event is big. It's personally my favorite event because, for the main reason is because it screws EA. Like, Matt Duchene just kind of exploded, and there is nothing they can do about it. So, that the Evo event is always one of my favorite events all year round. When the Evo event comes out, do you do something different? Do you go hard after those Evo cards, or are you just like, because it takes some knowledge of the game, right? I know that you're a big Leafs fan, so like I don't know how much other hockey that you watch that you, or you pay
Fortunately.
where you pay attention to it, or like is that one event? Because I know my man Kesso, like he bought like 7 Morgan Rileys. I bought like 4 or 5 Jared McCanns just on like a whatever, and it ended up paying off. And usually there's cards every year from the Evo event specifically. Would you recommend going all in on the Evo cards? Like, so Duchesne and Kyrou, those master sets. Would you recommend that?
Yeah, so it depends on price, but I mean, one thing you noticed all throughout the year is like certain Evo cards with good builds, so like bigger players kind of thing. Whenever they score a goal or two or they start to get hot, people got all excited
Yep.
about buying them. You know, he's going to 90. It's like
Yep.
investing. It is. And it's like the stock market, right?
Yep.
It starts to go up a little bit. People get excited. Prices go through the roof. Usually I'm selling during that time. People are excited. They're pumped. I'm usually flipping, taking my profit. So Evo is a really easy investment opportunity for like, you buy like half the field for the cheap cards. As soon as they score a couple of goals, all of a sudden people are excited. You get the sleeves video talking about him, right? Like he's the best card in the game. Sell the hype, baby. Make the profit.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, so now we know. Okay, so the first week of the game, right? You said that you're about a week or two behind. I like that like mentality. So, give me an example of some cards because the base cards really don't change every year. Players adjust a little bit, but not a lot. Give me some of the cards that you go after at launch, so that whenever you get Matthews or those kind of other cards that you just sell, like who are the staples? Like for instance, like I'm thinking off the top of my head, like Oliver Bjorkstrand's always super fast. Like he would be someone I would think like in the bottom 6. Like so it'd be obviously very cheap. Like who are some of the cards that you go after? Say again,
So
maybe.
yeah, so yeah, the yeah, like Sagan, like the first thing that I do is, like I said, kind of I spend a little bit of time because you get like EA gives you like no coins off the bat, right?
No.
You've got like maybe 5K kind of thing. So like in the very first couple days of the game, I am sitting at that 59-minute mark, which I don't actually do that much of, but at the beginning of the game, that's pretty much all you've got. So I'm looking for deals on just higher overall cards that people might want. I'm flipping up till I get to at least like 100K bankroll in those first few days. And then from there, I'm kind of, buying like cheap base cards for like 1 or 2K that are fast. Generally just looking for fast players to start to be competitive
Yeah.
with. But the key here is like, and again, another like real life example, the snowball effect of like once you get your first 100K, the second 100K comes 10 times faster and so on and so forth. My goal is to save up a bankroll so that basically at any given time, I've got enough coins to flip the most expensive card in the game. Okay, so last year that
Okay.
would be like Lemieux. So like he was like 1.5 million.
Yep.
I never wanted to be in a position where I saw a card come up for really cheap and I couldn't buy him.
That's an interesting mindset. So you're saying that you find the most expensive card maybe a couple weeks in, and you're like, I never want to go below this coin amount.
Right.
Okay.
And so like let's say if it's 1.5 million with Lemieux, well once I got to 1.6 million, well that 100K I'm comfortable to throw that back into my team. That's when I'm going to start upgrading to the better base cards and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Because it's not going to slow me down on flipping.
What was the most expensive card that you flipped? Like where you bought for a certain amount and then like if you bought, did you ever buy Lemieux for like 1.1 and get like 1.3?
All the time. Like Lemieux is one of the cards last year I made the most. I probably made like
He was
5 mil on
so
Lemieux
rare,
last year.
man. It took me forever to get him.
I made tons on the X Factors early on in the year. So like the
We're gonna talk about
McDavids,
that.
the McKinnon. What were the other expensive ones? I'm trying to remember. I guess McDavid and McKinnon were probably the two most expensive.
Yeah.
Lemieux and Gretzky made a ton of coins on them, but basically as you get up there, you start to transition away from the cheaper cards because the thing is this is that everyone or like let's say like 80% of the player base can afford these cheaper cards. So if you're going to flip those cards, you're competing with thousands of people for them.
Yeah.
But if you're going to flip Lemieux, you're competing with maybe like the top 1% of people in the game, and some of them don't even care to flip,
Yeah.
right?
No, man. Okay, I love that idea then. Okay. All right. Let me ask you this then. How much you talked about the 59th minute and how are you I'm trying to think of what the viewers would want to know here. So in that first week, again, I like being at the beginning of the game because obviously we're well past what the game cycle now. We're waiting for NHL 23, and for the most part, it's probably not going to change very much in terms of how you make coins, things like that. When you're talking about flipping, because you're trying to get like 100K early on, you're not using like the best base card teams. What exactly are you doing and what are you flipping? Because some people aren't going to understand like what you're actually flipping to get that. Like what are you solely focusing on when you're flipping early on?
I'm focused on base cards. Like I guess one thing to say is like set a filter. So like I'm gonna set the filter for like I don't know, like at launch maybe at least 82 or 83 and above.
Okay.
Because those cards like 81 or 82, they're gonna pretty much sell for like 1,000
Yeah.
regardless of who they are for the most part. So I'm okay to miss out on those deals. So I might set like a filter for like I don't know 83 plus overalls.
Okay.
And maybe set a filter for like depending on what they're selling for. Let's say an 83 selling for 5K for example.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna look to buy them for 2 or 3K to start off. Kind of humble beginnings, right? You're making 2 or 3 thousand and flip early on because that's all you've got.
Are you spamming like triangle on the reset, or are you?
Yeah, they're spamming. And the other thing that I do that's maybe different from some people is I don't just look at the 59-minute mark. Like if I can have a filter that's a little bit like, let's say I want to look for premium cards, like let's say 87 plus, like
Yeah.
the Matthews, McDavids. You're going to get a lot less cards to flip
Yeah.
through. I'll actually also look at the 3 hour, 6 hour, 12 hour, 1 day, 3 day, because a lot of people that are newer to the game might just put it up for sale for
Accident.
3 days. And I can't tell you the amount of times I got to flip at like the 1 day mark because no one else is looking there, right?
That's
so
true.
you kind of want to do things that are different than what everyone else is doing. The 1 hour mark, everyone knows that. Everyone's sitting there. Very competitive.
X Factor. So X Factor's got released this year, and I'm not gonna lie. After like the first like couple weeks, you can see just that because they didn't change the zone ability, which I think in hindsight, I pray to God that is like one of the bigger things that is if X Factors aren't going anywhere, which they're not. the thing that I think really needs to happen to make them useful is that as new cards come out for that X Factor player, not only does the overall tier unlock, but it allows you to select and choose an unlocked zone ability. So, for example, Austin
Hmm.
Matthews, let's say he scores like 4 goals in a game and he gets like make it snappy or maybe like unstoppable force because he had a goal where he holds someone off the puck, something like that. You could unlock that tier, and then instead of having shock and awe, which is fairly useless, you could then switch it to unstoppable force because a new card of Matthews has unlocked that card before, that ability. Without that, they're just going to be useless cards. What is your overall thought on X Factors, and are you just like never recommending to ever use them?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we all learned a lot last year, right? I mean, early on it was pretty cool because you could upgrade the card and like it was cheap.
It seemed
But I
pretty
think,
cheap up until the base card when the card art changed, but then the 90s hit
yeah.
and it was like, good lord.
So I didn't like. I remember I heard. I think it was Kesso talked about it on the podcast. Like he thought, oh, it's gonna be like 12 power ups. I'm thinking that's never gonna happen for one upgrade, like 12 power ups. And sure enough,
Yep.
we got there, right? So I think we all kind of learned that the X factors, unless they make a significant change, they're probably not going to be the move. Because like you said, I mean, there would be better cards come out. Like let's say the Team of the Week 95 comes out and it was like 75K, or you could spend like 1,000 power ups, and you know what I mean. Like it just didn't make sense. The X factors were not very good cards at a certain point.
So are you just so in terms of making money and having a competitive team without X Factor cards, you're just straight up never investing in them?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on how they set it up. But I mean, knowing what I know now, if it's the same kind of thing this year, I'm probably not going to use very many of them. I mean, I'm a half decent player with some of the competitive stuff, so I'd get some fodder for like the power up collectibles, as most people did, like
Yeah.
whether it was champs or whatever. You might have one or two on your team, kind of thing. But yeah, I think this year probably stay away from X factors. But you're gonna have to see like how the market looks on it. Like it'll be kind of, yeah, you'll have to ask me that one when when we see how it's
When
set
it comes
up
out.
because it could
Uh
be totally different.
let's talk about the weekly cycle. Okay. So are there certain days or times that you look to make your bank, or are you just when you log on, you're like, hey, I'm gonna go and make some coins here at any time?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to look at it. Like my regular kind of flow is like I might look at the market. Let's say this is already when you've got your bankroll built up, and let's say you've got a million coins or whatever to flip with. At that point, I'm no longer ever sitting on the 1 hour mark looking for cheap cards, right? Like I'm not one of these like volume grinders who sits there and flips like 10,000 cards. At that point, I'm looking for premium cards, like meta cards that people really want, and I'm just gonna flip them and put a premium on them. Like it gets to the point where I'll check the market maybe for 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. I'm just gonna quickly look at all the master set players, maybe some of the most expensive X factors, maybe the Mario Lemieux card, Gretzky card. See if there's any deals. Like let's say, like you said, maybe I see a Mario up for 1.1, and I know I can get 1.4 for him. It might take me a day or two, but literally the effort for that is like nothing, right? I'm gonna buy him. I'm going to make 300,000 coins over the course of the next few days. And all I got to do is list them for 12 hours. It takes 2 seconds in the morning, 2 seconds at the night. The idea is you want to have like a fleet of all these premium cards that you're selling for 50 to 100,000 profit kind of thing, and just be patient with it. Like I said earlier, impatient players are going to pay you a premium for having those cards for sale,
Let's
basically.
say before you get to the super premium cards, and you're still in that kind of like flipping to try and get your bankroll, right? Is there like do you recommend, let's say people have a lot of time to play the game. I mean, if you're watching a video in August on the market, you probably have a lot of time. Playing the game. Let's say this, would you recommend selling overnight because the player base just dries up? Or does that not really matter? Like, have you not really found a huge impact on that? Especially when the margins are small, like, do you look to take advantage of that kind of stuff? Like, right before you go to bed, do you list a ton of stuff or?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, if you're going to be on the game, like if you're living on the game, playing all the time,
Mhm.
it's best to go 1 hour because you can check then after the hour, hey, did another one go up? Like I tend to want to be kind of the cheapest within reason kind of
Mhm.
thing. So if someone's going to buy a card, it's going to be mine. Less so with the premium cards. Sometimes I'll let those sit for a while at a price that I think makes sense based on meta and whatever. But I did find a lot of times, yeah, like if I'm going to bed, let's say it's like 10 o'clock or whatever, I'm an old man, I go to bed at 10.
Same,
And
brother.
I'm gonna list a card for 12 hours or whatever so that in the morning I can see if it's sold. A lot of times those cards, if I was not the cheapest at night, a lot of times the cards dry up overnight and some of the guys from Euro come on
Yep.
and they buy those cards at a higher price a lot of times because the market gets a little bit like bare over the night. So I did find, yeah, a lot of times I'd be surprised at cards that sold, like when I wake up in the morning and check whatever happened. A lot of times those cards would sell overnight for more than you'd think.
Did you find that like pack days, like Wednesday's a big pack day, really the biggest one because you get squad battles and rivals and champs. Did you find that prices dropped enough where you can make your bankroll early on?
Yeah, 100%. So like I was going to mention this too, like, and you guys do a good job of this too, like talking about, hey, like rewards are coming out, like maybe you should store up some 87s or whatever for the next event. Just understand, guys, like it's a very predictable cycle of your supply and demand going on, right? And we know that that kind of drives price. So we know that like when rewards drop and everyone's got all these packs and they're pulling all these cards, they're all competing to sell that card right now.
Yep.
So if you are going to spend time doing the 59-minute mark kind of thing, those an hour spent during like reward drops is worth like 10 hours regular time.
That's okay.
Because
That's huge.
so
Okay.
for the person who says I don't want to spend all my time flipping, like me either. I don't
Yeah.
like doing that either, right? So I might spend, if I'm going to spend an hour or two a week on it, it's going to be during those rewards times because you're going to get some crazy deals from people who pull something that don't know much about the game and they just flip it up for sale and for maybe like half price. And I got some insane steals. Like there was a couple times, I think I got an X Factor McDavid for like 100K and I sold him for 900K
Oh,
during that time.
dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this: how do you I'm trying to think of for the casual player. In terms of what the price should be before you go into like sitting on the 59th minute, what cards do, and let's do the base of it early on in the game so it's very simple. Are you just looking at what Matthews goes for and like are you looking at the cheapest or are you looking at like the median where like the most people are in terms of like just certain cards? Like so like Matthews McDavid and then you just go and look for them?
Yeah, like I think a really good thing if you're brand new to this and you have no idea what you're doing, if you're a total rookie and you want to learn this stuff, I honestly recommend like just pull up like a notepad, pick like 10 of the most popular players in the NHL, like McDavid, Matthews, whatever, and just like maybe write down what's the cheapest price like once a day kind of thing, just for a couple days to see kind of how it's moving. And that's the best way to kind of learn. Like, because the thing is at the 59-minute mark, if a deal comes up, it's gone in like 10
It's
seconds.
very,
So you
very, yeah.
have to know the prices, right?
Yep.
So kind of your effort going in is you're going to have to do a little bit of, spend 5 or 10 minutes just looking at prices to see kind of what does the card actually sell for kind of thing. You can do that by adding it to a watch list. It'll tell you if it actually sells for what price. That's one way to
Oh.
do it.
Okay, so like on a card that you're not sure of, you can like you just hit add a watch list and then when that auction's done, it'll show you what it sold for.
Yeah, yeah. So say like let's say there's like a McDavid up for 100K and 110K, 120K, and you're like, huh, I don't know if those actually sell. You can add them to the watch list, and like maybe the 100K sells, but not the 110, and then you're like, okay, well McDavid's value is somewhere around 100 to 105 kind of thing.
Okay. After you've gotten your bankroll to like 100K, do you move on to mostly X factors now? Let's say everything's the same.
Yeah, so like let's say you've put in your time, you've grinded from your basically 0 to 100K, which is by the way the toughest part of this journey.
That's a long,
is
yeah.
getting through that. You might have to do 50 flips or 100 flips for 1K each kind of thing, right, to
Mm-hmm.
get there. But once you've got there, two things that I'll do is, yeah, one, I'll maybe go to X factors because there's bigger profit margins there. Like for example, on a card that sells for 5K, the most you can ever make is like 4K, right? If there's a card that sells for 50, well, now you maybe, get lucky, you buy it for 10 and you make 40K on it, right? So what I'll do is once I get about 100K is I'll either start bumping up my minimum overall, so maybe to like 85 now instead of 83, so that I'm flipping through less cards and maybe I get those 10 or 15K steals instead of the 4 or 5K steals.
Did you
I'm just
notice?
looking for more expensive
Did you
cards.
notice a big jump on X Factor? Something I noticed is that when I knew a card was going to get an upgrade, so like head or Kucherov pops off for like a hat trick. You know he's going to get a prime time. There's a pretty high shot that he goes up one overall. Did you notice that X Factor shot up after that card was released for a little while and then it calmed down? Or are you just like with X Factors, you just don't worry about that?
I noticed that people are smarter than you think. I noticed that actually there was a lot of people who thought like I don't know, they thought they had information that no one else had, so they'd buy those X factors and try to bump them up. But sometimes it would work, but sometimes it would backfire. Like let's say if the card released and it was like not a speed upgrade or something, right? Where it wasn't really a big upgrade. Those X factors sometimes stayed the same or even went down because
Yeah,
sometimes people tried to pump the
and the
price and it didn't
cost.
work. So I worried less about like the predictive stuff and more about just like what I know, right? Like with the base cards and stuff, like hey, like this is selling for about 100K, that's pretty stable. The X factors would move around kind of wildly, but I was always aiming to flip the card within like 24 hours, like within the day kind of thing.
Walk me through a new event. Let's say the first event. Let's pretend, oh, the first event this year was so scuffed because they actually gave us like actual cheap sets to do, which was nice, and then they immediately backpedaled on that. But early on, event comes out, and what's the way you tackle that? Is there an amount of coins that you want going into that first event specifically, or is nothing really changed for you?
Yeah, like I think the event, I mean, the first thing about events you got to know, like if you're lucky enough to pack like one of those MSP players early on, get rid of them, right? Like people are going to catch up. The whole adage of like, the 1 to 2 week cycle, you're going to lose half your value. Early on with those events, the only exception is the odd time someone like let's say the first person that pulls an MSP, sometimes they'll put it up for a price because they have no idea what to
Yeah,
put it for, right? Sometimes you have to make like an educated decision on like, okay, like is this a really good card that if they put it up for 200K, like do I think I could actually get 3 or 400K, right? But you'll see like the price kind of goes up and then down very quickly.
yeah.
So it's a little bit riskier, but the odd time like the first person who puts one up, maybe you get a steal kind of thing. But yeah, in general, like sell them, get rid of them. In general, I'm just looking to, there's nothing special I'm doing other than figuring out the values of those cards and just trying to flip them.
Yeah,
Like
you're
I'm
just trying to
not
flip them.
yeah, like I'm not trying to do like any like crazy long hold plays of like I'm gonna hold all this stuff and hope it goes up. I want to move stuff quickly and keep it pretty liquid.
So yeah, so you always play with the mindset of the Game World Championship. For anyone that doesn't know, that happens usually around April is when you need your team to be at the highest, or March, I guess. So for the normal player that wants to that wants to have a team throughout the year, and a new event comes out, you're saying if let's say you were playing like that, you still would not do untradables, right?
Yeah, like the problem with untradables is like one like let's say the first MSP you have to put like 250K in. Like let's say you could buy it for 400K
Yep.
tradable,
Yep.
or you could do 250K of cards and get it untradable.
Yep.
Well, the thing is, I'm just going to pay that premium because I can get those coins back when
That's
I'm done
true.
with the card. Rather than I know it's tempting because it's like, well, it's cheaper and maybe I just have enough to make him untradeable. But that's one of those things that, again, like my original statement of like you get paid for being patient, right? And that's one of the things is, again, this isn't for everyone.
No,
It's
absolutely
not for
not. No.
everyone. There's a lot of people who are like, screw that, I just want to have fun, and that's cool.
Yep.
But you're gonna sacrifice and not have quite as good of a team come GWC. And again, that's my goal is to have the best team at GWC.
No, for sure. So what would you the one thing I noticed is that it's always the early on defenseman master sets that last the longest. Is there so I guess like the Evo event, would you recommend making those master items?
Yeah, it depends who they are. Like this time with the Duchesne and Kairu, I thought those are pretty
They
obvious
started too late
makes.
because they already popped off like for the first couple of weeks.
They, they already popped off and it was like becoming obvious they're going to be 99s. And
Yeah.
plus, they're both pretty good like meta cards. Like people like a Duchesne build generally, and they like it like a Kairu, which I think he was like, I think his height was actually adjusted.
It
But like
was,
six
dude. His
foot or
daddy Padre went on a mission to be like, this is not right, and he made him 6'1".
yeah, so like those ones are pretty obvious. And there was ones like too like Brodeen, I think, where it was like obvious that like don't get that
Yeah,
right.
the
Like
defense. Yeah, a lot of the defensemen, it's like don't get those. So like those
yeah, like
ones, you're like because they have the potential to be all year round.
and it wasn't even like potential because I think by the time I actually made it, I waited till the very end of the event to see
I
like you
did the
could
same
make
thing.
the more you wait, right, the more information that you have. So you had more information about, hey, here's how he's doing. Like he was already popping off, and I was like, okay, there's a pretty darn good bet he's hitting 99. I would never make it like at the start of an event because you don't know what if he gets injured in 2 weeks and then you just
That's a
spent
good.
all these
I guess that's a
coins.
good point for the Evo event.
again, like being patient and paying attention, my two things. Like that's two of the things right there. Like why would you make it at the start when you can wait till the end to make sure that everything's good?
When it comes to, so you've talked about like obviously the big events throughout the year. I mean, Evo is probably the smallest of them, but that still has impact because they can be 99 overalls. Team of the year and team of the season. Let's talk about team of the year because that's right before or during the biggest player cycle, and that's January. Um, when team of the year comes out, how aggressive are you, and how many are you making?
Yeah, like I mean, this year all the cards look pretty good. I knew the Adam Fox probably wouldn't stand my team. I just wanted to make him
Dude,
anyways.
I
But
thought with
this
Shark,
is
yeah, like that was my
yeah,
biggest regret all year is making that Adam Fox.
I knew it was one too, and but I was in the position to make him, so I did. But basically, like for me, from the start of the year, from champs and all this stuff, like rivals, whatever, all my untradeable rewards, I'm just sitting on them for the most part, all the way until Evo or team of the year, team of the season, and that's when I'm just like selling the farm. I'm getting them all done. I'm making them all untradeable because most of those cards like Ranton and Hedman, I mean, those are big meta cards. You knew they're going to be on your team all year.
And you just made them untradeable?
Made them all untradeable. And that's the only time where I say that's okay is because, again, even if it's August and I log back on to play a game today, heaven forbid I would do that. Hedman and Rantanen are still going to be excellent, right?
No,
So,
absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about weekly rewards. What do you recommend throughout the week? And let's say, let's start with the person that's in mind that plays all year round and isn't really a GWC competitor. Okay, what would you recommend they take on tradable and get double the rewards, or tradable always? I don't know if you're on the opposite boat as me.
yeah, it might surprise you. I'm actually on the untradeable, even though I just
Okay,
told you
same.
guys that
Nope,
I'm
same.
pretty much like I don't make untradeable cards. But I think if you're getting two times the fodder for like your Evo or your Team of the Year cards, I'm always taking untradeable. And sometimes the odd time you actually get a decent pull in there that you can use. I
Yeah.
think like last year I pulled that Evo Kairu, which was awesome, huge
Oh,
help.
that's a big help. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you're
Yeah,
saying
so like
take
I'm taking
untradeable.
untradeable.
Take untradeable the whole time. Do you think there's a point at which you should stop? Like, if your team is god tiered, do you still think that untradeable is the best, and like why?
Depends. I think that still untradeable is probably better because even if you got a god tier team, you might still struggle to make all the team of the year cards that you want.
True. Yeah.
And you're gonna just get that value. Like if an 88's worth 35K, you're gonna pull a handful of those through your thing. So rather than buying those cards off the market for 35K a piece, I'd rather just have that double chance at pulling them. And to be honest, the game's for having a little bit of fun too. Like it's still fun to pull some packs and
Oh,
whatever, right?
absolutely.
But I do think that untradeable, like long term, I think it's hard to make an argument for tradable. Just the way that I play, because I normally build a tradable bankroll through my flipping,
Yeah, I
right?
guess.
So
Let's say, yeah, okay. So someone who's a little bit less into like the market, right? And like, not, even after listening to all this and taking all the information you're giving out, like, still not, it's not for them. Is there a type of player which you would recommend tradable?
I think too, like let's say early on, if you're the type of person you're like, you know what, I just can't do this 59-minute mark thing. I absolutely hate it. If you want to get started by taking some tradable rewards and selling them off just to get your first 100,
Like first
200K,
couple
so that you,
weeks.
yeah, first couple of weeks, like if you just like if you don't want to do the grinding it out, flipping to get started with a bankroll, taking tradable rewards is a good way to get your first 100, 200K to go through with that, right? So I think that's maybe an option, right? Is if you want to get out of like the slums of flipping 83s right away, just take tradables, sell them, and then maybe you
Okay.
get 100, 200K to move past that phase quicker.
All right, I like that. What about what was your thought on team builders?
I did the team builders just because, again, it got to the point where I had tons and tons of coins for them.
Mhm.
I didn't know, like early on, I was pretty hesitant to do those. Like, was it 90s that they started with?
Yeah,
I
start
can't
with the
remember.
'90s.
I didn't want to do them because I didn't know that things were going to come after that. I kind of forgot that they did the year before.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
the fact now that I know that they something came afterwards, I mean they were always some of the best cards in the game. So I mean they were good. The only trouble is again you get locked into that untradeable stuff. So I look at that as one of the last things I would ever do.
Like if you had so
Um,
much access that like that's when.
yeah, like once I've got my like 1.5 mil or whatever it is to buy those most expensive cards. If I've got an extra 500K and I want to do team builder, cool, right? But I would never do one before then. Just because
Okay.
it slows down your earning potential so much. Like it slows down your flipping potential so much to take a huge chunk of your coins and do that. Um, So I wouldn't recommend it until you're
After
settled.
Yeah, I'm all over the place, so I'm sorry for the viewers watching this, but I'm thinking of questions as it comes along. After the base cards, right? Like, so now we're 3-4 weeks into the game, right? Base card flips. I mean, McDavid and McKinnon are probably still gonna hold their value the longest, I would think,
Hmm.
just off the top of my head. Maybe Makar, but no, it won't be Makar because he's not a meta card. But like, so those two. What is the next set of cards that you watch for? Let's pretend you don't have the bankroll that you do. Let's say you start like 3 weeks in. Are you looking at like prime times and team of the weeks? How do you deal with those? Like, do you target those ever?
I think it's less about like team of the week or prime time, and it's just more about the overalls, right? Like so when you start, you're looking for like 83, 85 overalls. As your bankroll grows, you're going to start just bumping up your minimum overall. Like you're no longer really like your end game is you no longer want to be flipping cards for like 4 or 5K. You want to be making 50 to 100K per flip eventually. So pretty much all I'm doing is just bumping up like as my bankroll grows, I'm just bumping up the minimum overall. So whether it's a prime time team of the week, master set, whatever. I just want to be bumping up that minimum overall I'm looking for. So a couple weeks in, I'm probably like, I don't know, 88 plus kind of thing. And maybe there's only 100 cards on the market at a time that are like that. And then you're just looking for meta cards, right? That people want to use that are actually good, that should be on people's teams, and just trying to get people to pay me a premium to use them.
So, is there ever a time
So
where, let's say, a team of the week McDavid comes out? It's probably too expensive. No, I mean, I guess, okay, let's use that as an example. The first team of the week, McDavid comes out, it's like like 300K. Are you someone who tries to buy them all and then set the market, or are you see what the five that are up? Because when there's less than like 10, it's pretty tough because you're all fighting each other, but there isn't very many. Are you ever in an instance where you just buy them all and set it yourself?
I did that a couple times, but not with that type of card. So like a McDavid, because of the prices, he's going to be pretty rare, first of all, because he's high overall,
Yep.
right?
And it's a prime time,
Um,
like, so like they're out
yep,
of
it's a
packs.
prime time. Yeah, prime time, so that's really limited, kind of in quantity. So there was a couple times where you could get away with that, but the thing is, the price is really volatile. Like it's going to go up and down a
Yeah.
lot. What I did find is that sometimes there'd be cards that were like sort of like a hidden gem, like whether it be let's say a goalie or something that maybe like you guys are recommending, or that just look like a big goalie that would be good, and you could buy up a bunch of them and try to flip it for a higher price kind of thing. But I'm talking like lower tier cards that you could make a medium tier card, not like a premium card and then trying to like jack his price through the roof kind of thing.
When it comes to team of the weeks and prime times, you're selling immediately, right?
For the most part, yeah, I would say, yeah, I'm just looking to sell them. Like I said, they're really volatile to buy and sell. So sometimes I'm even just staying away from those because you might buy one at, let's say 300K because you think it's worth 400, then all of a sudden a bunch get pulled and now you've lost 100K.
Are you after about a month in, are you pretty much exclusively the big X factors and master set players?
Yeah, like once the bank rolls to a certain point, I'm no longer even like looking at base cards because just for me, again, like I don't want to make it my whole life of doing the flipping. You could do that and make even more, but for me, like it gets to a point where I just want it to be kind of like a passive income thing. So like I'll check the market in the morning for 10 minutes. I'll look at the top X factors, some MSP cards, some of the highest overalls, whatever. See if I can get any, relist my cards. Boom, I'm off the game.
Okay.
Come back at nighttime, spend 10 minutes, look at the markets, da da da. The only like exception is again on those rewards days. If I'm going to spend an hour or two actually doing some flipping, those are the days where it's most valuable because there's so many cards flooding on. You're going to get so many types of deals. It's going to be worth your hour
All
if you
right.
want to do flipping.
Give me any other tips that you want to bring up?
Yeah, I think like the untradeable cards is a big one. I think for the most part, like just if you want the best team, just don't do the things you know you're not supposed to do. Like
It's so
whether
hard. You
it's
see the
like
shiny new
buying,
toy.
yeah, like you see the shiny new toy, or like you see like buying the packs and stuff. Like EA has this whole game, even like the rerolls. Like EA has this whole game designed so that
That's a good thing. The
s
sets. Do you
they
do
give
the
you a little bit of
sets?
excitement and gambling,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like give you like some excitement and gambling, but it's always like hurting you slightly in the long term, right? Like it's always like you're losing like 10K value every time you do this, right?
Yeah.
And like, over like 100 times, well, that's all of a sudden adds up huge.
The tree roll sets. What do you recommend for those? Do you do them at all?
The reroll sets, I don't know. I saw like last year, a lot of people had a lot more success than usual in those. So I
Yeah.
don't know, but I personally wasn't doing them because I figured I was losing probably like 5 or 10K each time I was doing the premium ones.
That's the
So
thing,
for
because
me,
yeah, people. I've seen a lot of like other creators and whatnot talk about how like they get really crazy pulls out of them, but like yeah, even if it's an untradeable card, there's always gonna be value in that because yeah, you're right. If you how many of the team of the year cards did you make?
I made all of them.
Okay, so you're saying you need a huge amount of untradables, like you're saving all your rewards.
Yeah, like my untradables were like enough to make, even though I saved everything and like I got top 100 and whatever, like pretty much every week. Um, Even with that, I mean, I still had to like out of pocket like spend a lot of coins to still make them.
Yeah.
So my point is that you'll never have enough untradables to actually, if you want to make them all, like if you want like a true God squad or whatever, you're never going to have enough untradables for it. So you basically just want to hoard them.
Okay, man.
And again,
Yeah.
it's not super fun, but I mean, if you want the best team, that's one of
No,
the
like
things.
that's it's honest. Even if you want the best team at the end of the game, that's still kind of like the thing to follow. The only thing that sucks is like obviously, yeah, you don't get like the new cards every week that like you're excited about. In terms of that. But if you go all untradeable and then you're just selling everything that you've got, like that's yeah, I like that idea of once you get with the thought process of like, I want to always be able to afford the most expensive card in the game. I think that's a great thought process when it comes to it because people don't know how much is too much and like what should you spend your money on. Because I feel like a lot of people will flip and then they've got enough to buy that like third defenseman, like that master set Wierenski or whatever. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
And they get trapped in that. Now, when you are buying, like, because you've gotten to a point, right? And you're not making these master sets, are you buying them to use on your team? Because you've got to upgrade your team throughout the year.
Yeah, so exactly. So like once you get to a certain point, again, like once you've built up your bankroll, once you've got some excess funds, like some extra 300K to upgrade the team, well then I'll just buy a tradable MSB card and throw them on the squad, right? Like
When do
that's
you
kind of your
jump
reward
off?
for it depends. It does depend. Like I know that basically anytime you're holding like one of the best cards in the game, you know you're kind of losing value over time,
Yeah.
right? But the thing is, I mean, if you want to be competitive, you got to have some good cards in the squad. So
What
I
did you
think for me is
focus
like,
on when it comes
yeah,
to
like
building your team?
the reward was like, once you got to let's say 2 million, you got okay, I got 500K to upgrade my team with, and I would spend that a little bit more recklessly, kind of thing, right? Have
Okay, yeah,
some
you
fun
just
with
buy
it.
whatever was like the new hotness kind of thing.
But yeah, like building teams, I don't know. It's tough to say like early on like what you focus on. I mean, I watched lots of your vids too, like hey, what came out? What were some of the good cards to buy? Maybe I missed something or whatever. Even though I played the game for like 10 years, there's sometimes sleeper cards that even I don't pay attention to or whatever.
No, fair enough. Last thing I want to talk about is Hut Champs. What did you do with your Hut Champs rewards? I have a thought on this.
Well, because of the way that they had power up collectibles, I mean, I exclusively use them on power up collectibles because
That
I
was it,
was
or that was still the best value. I agree.
because the other thing was I had a lot of once it got to the point where it was obvious that X factors weren't maybe the best thing to do anymore.
Yeah.
I started to like power some of them down or ones that I wouldn't use, but it got to the point where if I had the untradeable X factor card, I did use a couple times. I used power up collectibles that I had from champs to upgrade them and then make them into the team of the year card. So even though that wasn't like a super efficient way to do it, I had all these untradeable rewards from champs for like power collectibles and stuff. So I did do that sometimes for those team of the year cards
Would
too.
you ever recommend? So one of the things I thought about for GWC players that kind of stunned me is once I saw the cards that came out, like the actual players, and that everyone can get them now. To save up all the power or Hut Champs collectibles for like a free 97 overall player come like GWC because the Hut Champs cards got better. Do you think that's like maybe something that's not a bad idea going into this year if that stays the same?
Yeah, you could totally. I mean, I usually would hoard those collectibles just in case that happened. Like a card came out that I really, really wanted. Just never really, I don't know. They just never really came out with anything. So I was mostly just using them on power up collectibles. But it's a good idea to just hoard them as they are because you can always convert them later, right? There is no cooldown.
Let's say there's a 5-win guy that isn't really good in champs, but he gets to play in it and he gets a few collectibles. Would you ever recommend them just using on like ultimate choice packs or ultimate packs?
I didn't I didn't really just because there's so much unknown there. Like I knew I was getting like 20K value for each collectible if I went into power ups. You kind of did the math on it. Most of the time you opened
Yeah.
an ultimate pack, you weren't getting back. I think it was like 4 or 5 collectibles. Most of the time you weren't making 80 or 100K back from it. So for the most part, again, like doing the boring thing was sometimes better.
Any of last minute tips or anything that we didn't go over you can touch on? Anything that we should touch on?
No, I would say again, like the big thing is think about how long you want to play the game and how you want to play the game. This video, there's gonna be a lot of people who are like, oh, that sounds boring,
Yep.
and like I get it. Don't follow it, right? This
Hmm.
is more for the people who really want to optimize and have the best team for GWC. And like I said, like the key things were that you get paid for just being patient and just paying attention to the marketplace kind of thing. Most people spend like zero time on that. So even if you spend 10 or 15 minutes, you're gonna have a much better team. And just don't do dumb stuff like don't do the dumb stuff of like buying all the best cards and then they all go down in half in price and then you've just lost like so much value just from that one decision.
No, I feel you, man. Well, I want to thank you for coming on out of the YouTube retirement and hopping on
Whew.
for video. I think we're gonna have you on me and Castle's podcast for sure when the new game drops. Get your thoughts on some of your market secrets. But again, man, I want to thank you for coming on, and it was a blast, dude.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I much appreciate it. It was good, and hopefully it helped at least someone out there. There's probably like one nerd like me who's like, "Oh, this sounds so good." So hopefully there's like one or two people that I can help with it, and hopefully it's useful to someone. So
No, absolutely. I
thanks.
appreciate it, my man. And thank you. We'll see you around.
All right, see you later.